Welcome, curious minds, to another deep dive. Today, we're plunging into one of botany's greatest enigmas, a puzzle that even, well, stumped Charles Darwin.
hmm
He famously called it an abominable mystery. The seemingly sudden explosion and, spectacular spread of flowering plants, or angiosperms.
Yeah.
We're going to unpack this evolutionary marvel, tracing their incredible journey from ancient beginnings all the way to their global dominance today, basically digging into the latest research from our sources.
Indeed, it's a story of just profound innovation and adaptation. Our mission for this deep dive is really to shortcut your understanding of how angiosperms not only emerged, but completely thrived.
Okay.
We'll explore their mysterious ancestors, try to pinpoint when they first burst onto the scene, and reveal how their unique features, especially those stunning flowers and versatile fruits, co-evolved with animals and even chemistry to make them the absolute powerhouse phylum that shapes so much of the world around us.
So let's dive right into Darwin's abominable mystery then.
Yeah.
Imagine, like, peering into the fossil record. You see the earliest, simpler vascular plants,
Right.
then this rich tapestry of ferns and their relatives dominating for millions of years, followed by the rise of gymnosperms, those cone-bearing plants.
The conifers, cycads.
Exactly. But then, relatively late in the game, in the early Cretaceous, maybe 135 million years ago, angiosperms seem to appear from almost nowhere.
Just pop up.
Yeah, and they rapidly take over the planet by, 90 million years ago. It's quite an evolutionary leap that leaves a lot of questions.
And what's truly striking is that these plants, once they appear, they all share this unique blueprint. It's clear. They possess a specific suite of characteristics, pointing right back to a single common ancestor.
So what kind of things are we talking about?
Well, we're talking about their distinct flowers,
Yeah.
obviously, but also seeds fully enclosed within a protective structure called a carpel in this really clever process called double fertilization. Beyond that, their reproductive cells are incredibly streamlined, very efficient, and they have highly specialized plumbing for nutrient transport, these things called sieve tube elements and companion cells in their phloem.
Right.
And the key insight here, I think, is how these seemingly small biological tweaks, like that seed-enclosing carpel, unlocked this just explosion of new possibilities. It effectively built a protection and dispersal system far superior to anything before.
So for years, scientists were searching high and low for those elusive ancestors, weren't they?
Oh, absolutely. There were hypotheses linking them to ancient groups like Mesozoic seed ferns or the Caytoniales, even the Bennettitales, some of which, like this extinct plant Wielandiella, actually had flower-like reproductive structures.
So, kind of close.
Kind of close, maybe superficially. Then there was the anthophyte hypothesis, which suggested nettophytes, a small group of living gymnosperms, were their closest relatives.
I remember that one.
Yeah, but recent molecular analyses have, well, largely dispelled that idea. They revealed nettophytes are actually nested right within the conifer family tree,
Ah, okay.
which means angiosperms don't have any close living relatives among gymnosperms, which, when you think about it, only deepens the mystery of where they actually came from.
Right.
But paleobotany, phylogenetics, modern developmental genetics, they're continually shedding new light on the timing and the diversification.
And the earliest clear signs we have are fossilized pollen grains. Right. Dating back about 135 million years.
That's the unequivocal pollen, yeah.
But the first actual plant where we get a good impression of the whole organism is Archaefructus, discovered in China, about 125 million years old.
hmm And it's not what people expected.
No. Imagine this small, pretty humble aquatic plant. Definitely not a showstopper. Its flowers lack sepals and petals, simply bearing stamens and carpels on branches that extended up above the water.
Exactly. And this find, combined with these molecular clocks suggesting an even earlier origin, maybe 140, even 180 million years ago, really shifted our perspective.
How so?
Well, for a long time, botanists pictured the earliest flowers as large and showy, something like a magnolia, big, spirally arranged parts.
Right, the classic image.
But what Archaefructus and the molecular data reveal is that the abominable mystery wasn't some sudden grand floral explosion. It was likely a much quieter, efficient revolution.
Starting small.
Starting small, simpler, non-showy flowers, possibly in these open, wet, or aquatic environments. These conditions would favor small, fast-growing plants with a short generation time traits, still really common in many angiosperms today. That set the stage for their eventual global takeover.
Okay, so if those were the humble beginnings, what does the grand family tree of angiosperms look like today? It's huge, right?
It's enormous. If we connect this to the bigger picture, the vast majority, like 97%, fall into two huge categories: monocots and eudicots.
Okay, monocots and eudicots, how do we tell them apart?
Well, you can recognize monocots by features like having just a single initial leaf, a cotyledon, in their embryo, and their pollen typically has a single furrow or pore that's called monoaperturate pollen. Eudicots, on the other hand, they boast a more derived characteristic, triaperturate pollen. Their pollen grains usually have 3 furrows or pores. It's a key evolutionary innovation for them.
But what about that remaining 3%? You said 97% were monocots and eudicots?
Right, that small fraction holds the key to the earliest branches. These are the most ancient angiosperm lineages, often just called basal-grade angiosperms. Modern molecular studies have ID'd 3 key groups that are sister groups to all the other flowering plants.
Sister groups meaning they branched off first.
Exactly. Branched off before the huge diversification of the rest, which we collectively call Angiospermae, essentially, the core group.
Okay, so who are these basal groups?
Well, one of them is Amberella trichopoda. It's this fascinating shrub from New Caledonia. It's small flowers. If they even have distinct petals and sepals, they're not clearly defined. And it's dioecious.
Meaning male and female flowers on separate plants, like that figure 22 shows.
Precisely. And get this. Its xylem, the water-conducting tissue, lacks vessels, which most other angiosperms have. And its embryo sac has this unique structure, 8 cells and 9 nuclei. It's really like a living fossil, showing us what some very early flowering plants might have been like.
Wow. Okay, who else is in that basal group?
Then there are the nymphaeales. That includes the beautiful water lilies like the fragrant water lily in figure 20-3. They're herbaceous aquatic plants, perfectly adapted to environments with high light intensity.
Makes sense for water lilies.
And the third group is the strobili. These are mostly shrubs and small trees that prefer the low light of moist tropical forest understories. Strobili scandens, figure 20-4, shows it as a great example. Its large flowers have parts arranged in spirals, including what we call tepals.
Carpels, that's when sepals and petals look the same or grate into each other.
Exactly. They aren't clearly differentiated. And its stamens become progressively sterile towards the flower center. Lots of primitive-seeming features there.
Okay, so moving up the evolutionary ladder from those basal groups, you mentioned the Angiospermae.
Right. Within that huge group, the first lineage to branch off were the magnolids. Think of the iconic magnolia family, like figure 20-5, but also laurels and peppers. The Dutchman's pipe in figure 20-6 is another example, using foul odors to attract flies.
Ah, okay. What's characteristic about them?
They often retain some more, let's say, ancestral features like numerous spirally arranged flower parts, and they have these special oil cells containing ethereal oils. That's what gives us familiar scents like nutmeg and bay leaf.
Gotcha. And then the monocots and eudicots branch off after the magnolids.
That's the current understanding. The monocots form a second major lineage within the Angiospermae. They hang on to some basal features like that monoaperturate pollen, but they've obviously developed their own incredible diversity: grasses, orchids, palms. And then the eudicots form the third and by far the largest major clade. They're characterized by their derived triaperturate pollen. This group is just massive violets, tomatoes, mints, daisies, oak trees, encompassing countless familiar species.
Flowers. They're such a defining and just endlessly varied feature of angiosperms. What were the evolutionary steps that took us from something like that humble Archaefructus to, say, an incredibly elaborate orchid?
It's a fantastic question, and the perianth, those outer floral whorls, the sepals and petals, gives us crucial clues. In the earliest angiosperms, like we saw with Astrobalia, these parts weren't sharply divided. They were often identical or transitioned gradually, much like in modern magnolias.
So where did distinct petals come from?
Well, it seems petals originated in a couple of ways, either from modified sepals or probably more commonly from stamens. The pollen-producing parts that lost their function became sterile.
Sterilized.
Yeah, and instead specialized for attracting pollinators. Sometimes they even evolve further into nectaries, the little structures that secrete sugary rewards.
And what about the carpels, the parts that hold the ovules? You said enclosing them was key.
Absolutely critical. Early carpels were more leaf-like, kind of unspecialized. Even today, many woody magnolids still have free, separate carpels.
Yeah.
But in most modern angiosperms, the carpels have fused together and become highly differentiated into the stigma, the sticky top part that catches pollen,
Right.
the style, which is the stalk, and the protective ovary at the base. This enclosing of the ovules within the carpel was just a game-changing evolutionary step. Much better protection.
Makes sense. And stamens diversified, too.
Oh, remarkably. In some archaic magnoliids, they were broad, colored, maybe even scented, playing a direct role in attracting visitors. Later, we see the more familiar structure. Thin filaments supporting those thick terminal anthers packed with pollen.
And sometimes they fuse together.
Yes, in some highly specialized flowers, stamens are fused together, forming columns like you see in a cotton flower. Figure 29do shows that kind of fusion. Or sometimes they're fused directly to the corolla, the ring of petals.
So, looking at the big picture, botanists talk about these main evolutionary trends in flowers, right, that help explain their success.
Exactly. There are four principal trends that really paint the picture. First, a general move from having many floral parts, often an indefinite number, to having fewer parts, indefinite numbers like 5 petals, 5 stamens.
Okay, fewer and fixed.
Second, the shortening of the flower's central axis. This led to parts being arranged in distinct whorls like rings rather than spirals, and often this went hand in hand with the fusion of floral parts, like fused petals forming a tube.
More compact, more organized.
Third, a shift from what we call superior ovaries, where the ovary sits above the attachment point of other flower parts, to inferior ovaries.
Inferior meaning below.
Below, often deeply embedded and protected within the floral tube. This trend also involved a clearer differentiation of the perianth into distinct sepals, usually for protection, and petals, usually for attraction.
Okay, protection and specialization. And the fourth.
Finally, a change from radial symmetry actinomorphy, think of a star. You can cut it multiple ways for mirror images to bilateral symmetry or zygomorphy.
Like an orchid or a snapdragon. Only one line of symmetry.
Exactly. And this bilateral symmetry guides pollinators much more precisely to the nectar and the reproductive parts. It's about efficiency.
You can really see these trends coming together in some families, can't you? Like the Asteraceae, sunflowers and daisies.
Absolutely. The composites, Asteraceae, they're the second largest angiosperm family. Their tiny flowers are what we call epigynous.
Meaning the ovary is inferior, below the other parts.
Right. And these tiny flowers are tightly bunched into a head, which, functionally acts like a single large flower to attract pollinators. If you look closely at one tiny flower, like in figure 2010, it has an inferior ovary, 5 stamens fused together, 5 petals fused into a tube or strap, and the sepals are often reduced to this feathery structure called a pappus.
The part that helps dandelion seeds float away.
That's the one. A modification for wind dispersal after pollination. Highly specialized.
And then there are the orchids, the largest family, right? Over 24,000 species. Figure 2011a gives a sense of the variety.
The orchids are just incredible. They are monocots, but their flowers are unbelievably specialized. Their 3 carpels are fused into an inferior ovary, which contains thousands, sometimes millions, of minute ovules.
Wow.
Most strikingly, their single stamen is fused with a style and stigma into this really complex structure called a column.
A column.
Yeah, and their pollen isn't loose grains. It's dispersed as a single sticky unit called a pollinium. It's like a perfectly packaged pollen payload for a specific pollinator.
That's efficient.
Extremely. And the orchid's 3 petals are also highly modified. One usually forms a distinctive lip that's shown well in figure 2011b, which often acts as a landing platform for insects. Orchid flowers are always bilaterally symmetrical and often, frankly, bizarre in their appearance, perfectly tailored for very specific pollinators.
This extreme specialization, it raises a big question. Why? Why go to such incredible lengths?
That's the core of it. Plants, unlike most animals, are rooted in place, right? They can't move to find a mate.
Right. Stuck.
But through the flower, angiosperms evolved a form of directed mobility. By attracting animals, they effectively transcend their sessile nature. And this, I think, is where we really start unraveling Darwin's mystery. How they overcame that immobility to become the ultimate colonizers.
So it started with shifting away from just wind pollination.
Pretty much. Early seed plants relied on passive wind pollination. Sticky drops on the ovules would catch whatever pollen blew by. It works, but it's inefficient.
Lots of wasted pollen.
Exactly. But over time, insects started feeding on pollen and other flower parts, and they inadvertently started transferring pollen between plants. This insect-driven system was a game changer. Far more efficient, much more accurate, needed way less pollen.
And the closed carpel helped there too.
Hugely. Protecting the ovules from being eaten by these visitors was a massive selective advantage. And having bisexual flowers with both male and female parts meant a pollinator could potentially both pick up and deliver pollen in a single visit. Super efficient.
From there, it became about specialization. tailoring the flower to the pollinator.
Precisely. Selection favored specialization. For instance, flowers pollinated by beetles and flies often have strong, sometimes pretty foul odors, think dung or carrion. Figure 2012 gives some examples. Perfect for attracting their specific visitors. And their essential parts are often well protected from, gnawing insects.
But bees are maybe the superstar pollinator.
Arguably the most important group, yes. They've co-evolved with flowering plants for over 80 million years. Figure 2013 shows a bee loaded with pollen. Bees live on nectar and they actively collect pollen for their larvae.
You're built for it.
Totally. Specialized mouthparts, body hairs, appendages like pollen brushes and baskets for collecting and carrying. And they're smart. They quickly learn to recognize colors, odors, shapes.
And they see color differently than we do.
Crucially, yes. Bees see ultraviolet light as a distinct color, but they don't perceive red as a distinct color. So bee flowers are often blue or yellow, and frequently they have these honey guides.
The lines are spots pointing to the center.
Right, but often they're UV markings invisible to us. Figure 2014 shows how these work. To a bee, they act like tiny landing lights or GPS signals, indicating the exact position of the nectar.
Clever. What about butterflies and moths?
Butterfly and diurnal moth pollinated flowers are often similar to bee flowers, bright colors, but they often include clear landing platforms, as shown in Figure 2015, because butterflies land differently.
Makes sense.
Nocturnal moths, on the other hand, visit flowers that are typically white or pale, so they show up at night, and they emit these sweet, penetrating scents, often only after sunset. Their nectaries are frequently hidden deep within a long corolla tube or spur, accessible only to the moth's long, sucking mouthparts.
And some orchids take it even further with deception.
Oh yeah, some orchids have evolved food deception, signaling food rewards like nectar but not actually providing any, or even sexual deception, where the flower mimics the appearance and the pheromones of a female insect to trick male insects into trying to mate with the flower.
Wow. That's devious.
It's incredibly sophisticated biology, all to ensure pollen gets transferred.
Okay, what about non-insect pollinators? Birds, bats.
Birds, with their really keen color sense but generally poor sense of smell, are attracted to brightly colored flowers, often red or yellow, colors bees don't see as well. Think of hummingbirds visiting flowers, like in Figure 2016. These flowers produce copious, thin nectar, but usually very little odor.
Tailored for the bird.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Bats conversely pollinate dull-colored flowers that open at night. These produce abundant nectar and often have strong fermenting, fruit-like or kind of musty scents. Figure 2017 shows a bat visiting one. And these flowers often hang down below the foliage, making them easy targets for flying mammals.
And of course, some angiosperms still rely on wind, right?
Absolutely. Wind pollination is still very common, especially in temperate regions. Think oaks, birches, grasses. Figure 2018 shows grass flowers. They typically produce no nectar, are dull, odorless, and have small or absent petals. It's all about function.
What are their adaptations?
Their anthers are usually well exposed to release massive amounts of light, wind-carried pollen, and their stigmas are often large and feathery to efficiently trap that pollen from the air. It's a less targeted strategy than animal pollination, but clearly very effective for many successful plant groups.
Color. It's such an obvious signal, a literal visual language between plant and pollinator. What's the chemistry behind that vibrant palette? How do they make all those hues?
It's fascinating, actually. All those flower colors are produced by a surprisingly small number of pigment types. Carotenoid pigments, they're oil-soluble, found in the plastids within cells, are responsible for most reds, oranges, and yellows. Think carrots, same kind of pigment. But probably the most important pigments are a group of flavonoids, particularly the anthocyanins. Figure 2019 shows their basic structure. These are water-soluble, found in the plant cell's vacuoles, and they determine most of the red, purple, and blue flower colors we see.
And their color can change.
Yes. What's really intriguing is how the color of anthocyanins can shift dramatically based on the acidity, the pH, of the cell sap inside that vacuole. Cyanidin, for instance, is red in acidic solutions, violet in neutral ones, and blue in alkaline ones.
So the same molecule can make different colors?
Exactly. And some plants even use this trick. They change flower color after pollination, may be triggered by ethylene gas, often leading to a surge in anthocyanins. This change signals to pollinators, hey, I've already been visited, don't bother stopping here. It's a very clever no vacancies sign.
Smart. Are there other pigments involved?
Another group of flavonoids called flavonols are colorless, or nearly so, but they contribute to ivory or white hues, often by modifying or copigmenting with anthocyanins. And then In certain specific Eudicot families, like the Caryophyllaes, which includes things like bougainvillea and beets the reddish colors, come from an entirely different group of pigments called beta-cyanins. Beta-cyanins, different from anthocyanins, completely different chemically. And interestingly, plants that produce beta-cyanins do not produce anthocyanins. It's an either situation in those groups.
And that bee's purple example you mentioned with UV light, that really highlights how different their world looks.
It's a fantastic example. Take a marsh marigold figure, 2020 shows it. To our eyes, it's just solid yellow, right?
Right.
But under ultraviolet light, which bees see, the outer parts of the petals reflect both yellow and UV. That combination creates a unique color for the bee, what we call bee's purple. The inner parts, however, absorb UV and just appear pure yellow to the bee.
So it's like a hidden bullseye.
Exactly. A sophisticated UV bullseye, a hidden message guiding the bee directly to the nectar and pollen at the center. It shows perception is everything.
Okay, so flowers attract the pollinators, but the job's not done. The next big step is getting the seeds out into the world, and that's where fruits come in, nature's brilliant delivery systems.
Absolutely. While flowers are about pollination, fruits are all about dispersal. Strictly speaking, a fruit is simply a matured ovary.
Just the ovary.
That's the strict botanical definition. But often, fruits also include accessory tissue. That's non-carpellary tissue parts of the flower base. Maybe that becomes fused with the ovary as it matures. Think of the fleshy red part of a strawberry that's actually accessory tissue. The true fruits are the tiny seeds on the surface.
Ah.
And some fruits, known as parthenocarpic fruits, can even develop without fertilization ever happening, so they don't have viable seeds. Bananas and pineapples are common examples. But the primary purpose, overwhelmingly, is getting those seeds dispersed far and wide.
And they do this in so many ways. How are fruits generally classified?
Well, based on their development, they fall into three main types. First, you have simple fruits, which develop from a single carpel or from several fused carpels in one flower.
Okay, simple fruit, one flower origin.
Right. And these can be fleshy, like berries, think tomatoes, grapes where the whole pericarp, the fruit wall, is fleshy, or drupes, which are stone fruits like peaches or cherries where you have a fleshy outer part but a hard, stony inner layer, the endocarp, around the seed. Figure 2021 shows a peach pit. Pomes, like apples and pears, are another fleshy type, but most of the flesh actually comes from the floral tube, making them accessory fruits too.
Okay, fleshy, simple fruits. What about dry ones?
Simple fruits can also be dry, and these split into two subcategories. Dehiscent fruits split open at maturity to release seeds. Examples include follicles, like milkweeds, figure 2022a, which split along one seam. Legumes, like peas or beans, figure 2023, splitting along two seams. Seleaks, typical of mustards, like in figure 2022c, where two halves split away from a central partition. And capsules, like poppies, figure 2020b, which can open in various ways, like pores.
So they actively release the seeds. The other type.
The other type of dry, simple fruit is indehiscent, meaning they don't split open. The seed remains inside the fruit, and the whole fruit disperses as a unit. Examples here include achene small, one-seeded fruits where the pericarp is easily separated from the seed, like in a buttercup. If an achene has wings, like in elms or maples, figure 2024, figure 2026a, it's called a samara.
Like those helicopter seeds from maples?
Exactly. Then there's the cypsela, similar to an achene but developing from an inferior ovary, typical of the Asteraceae, like a dandelion seed, figure 2025. The caryopsis is the grain of grasses, where the seed coat is fused to the pericarp. Nuts, like acorns, have a hard, stony pericarp. And schizocarps, like maples again, start as fused carpels but split into one-seeded portions at maturity.
Okay, that covers simple fruits. What are the other main types?
The second main type is aggregate fruits. These form from a single flower that has many separate free carpels. Each carpel develops into a little fruitlet, and these all mature together on a single receptacle. Think of raspberries or blackberries. Magnolias also have aggregate fruits. Even strawberries, figure 2028a, are aggregate fruits, where the tiny achenes are the true fruits scattered on the fleshy accessory receptacle. Single flower, many ovaries. Got it. And the third type is multiple fruits. These develop not from a single flower, but from an entire inflorescence, a whole cluster of flowers. The ovaries of many separate flowers fuse together or become incorporated into a single mass. Pineapples and figs are classic examples.
So many flowers making one big fruit structure.
Precisely. And remember, any fruit, whether simple, aggregate, or multiple that includes accessory tissue, is also called an accessory fruit. So apples and strawberries fit this category too.
And when these fleshy fruits ripen, there are big changes, right?
Oh yeah. Dramatic changes, usually mediated by hormones like ethylene. Sugar content skyrockets, the fruit softens as cell walls break down, and colors often change dramatically from green for camouflage to a bright red, yellow, blue, or black. Figure 2028A again shows ripening strawberries. It's basically an advertisement. I'm ripe, I'm sweet, come eat me. Some seeds even have their own fleshy, colorful appendages called arils, which serve a similar attractive function.
Okay, so these different fruit structures are all about dispersal. Can we recap the main ways seeds get around using these fruits?
Sure. Wind dispersal is huge. Many fruits and seeds are super light, equipped with wings like those maple samaras, figure 2026A, or elms or plumes like dandelions, figure 2026B, or milkweeds, figure 2022A, to catch the breeze. Some plants, like touch-me-nots or witch hazel, even practice ballistic dispersal, literally shooting their seeds explosively. Even the parasitic dwarf mistletoe, shown in figure 2027, does this.
Wow, explosive plants. What else?
Water dispersal is key for aquatic plants or those living along rivers or coasts. Their fruits or seeds are adapted to float, either by trapping air or having buoyant, air-filled tissues. The coconut is the classic example, capable of floating across vast stretches of ocean.
And then there's animals.
Animal dispersal is incredibly important, and that's where those fleshy fruits really shine, like in figure 2028. The sweet, colorful pulp rewards vertebrates, birds, mammals, reptiles for eating them. The seeds are typically tough enough to pass unharmed through the digestive tract, or sometimes they're regurgitated. Either way, they often end up deposited far from the parent plant, usually with a nice little dollop of fertilizer. Some seeds even require partial digestion, scarification, to break dormancy.
So eat the fruit, spread the seed. But animals help in other ways too.
Definitely. Attachment dispersal is common. Think of fruits or seeds with hooks, barbs, spines like the grapple plant Harpagophytum or cockleburs, shown in figure 2029, or even sticky coverings. These latch on to animal fur or feathers, allowing the seeds to hitchhike, sometimes for enormous distances.
The original Velcro?
Pretty much. And a really fascinating, more subtle type is antidispersal, or myrmecochory. Many plants, especially in forests, produce seeds with a special fleshy, lipid-rich appendage called an elaeosome.
Elaeosome?
Yeah. Ants find these irresistible. They carry the seeds back to their nests, chew off and eat the nutritious elaeosome, and then discard the intact seed, often in their nutrient-rich waste tunnels or chambers within the nest, a perfect protected spot for germination. It's a beautiful mutualism.
Okay, flowers for pollination, fruits for dispersal, but there's another layer, isn't there? This chemical warfare.
Ah, yes, the biochemistry. Absolutely crucial. We're talking about the so-called secondary metabolites or secondary plant products, things like alkaloids, which include potent compounds like morphine and caffeine, terpenoids responsible for essential oils, resins, even rubber, and phenolics, a huge group, including flavonoids, tannins, figure 2030 shows tannins in oak leaves, and the urushiol in poison ivy.
And these aren't for basic metabolism, right?
No, not directly for growth or photosynthesis. For a long time, they were dismissed as maybe just waste products. But we now understand they play major roles in how plants interact with everything around them, especially defense.
A chemical arsenal.
Exactly. These chemicals essentially act as the plant's hidden defenses, restricting which animals can eat them, or causing unpleasant effects so animals learn to avoid them altogether. If a particular plant family has evolved a distinctive group of these chemicals, it often means only a few highly specialized insects might evolve the ability to feed on them, while most generalist herbivores are deterred.
It drives specialization on both sides.
Precisely. A classic example is the mustard family, the Brassicaceae. They produce mustard oil glycosides, those pungent chemicals that give mustard and horseradish their kick. These deter most plant-eating insects.
But not all insects.
No. Specific groups of true bugs, beetles, and particularly butterfly larvae, like the cabbage butterflies, Pieris repe, have evolved countermeasures. They can not only tolerate these chemicals, but actually use them as feeding stimulants. The taste tells them, yes, this is the right food. This represents a significant coevolutionary step for both the plant, being protected from most things, and the specialized insects, who gain an exclusive food source with less competition.
And sometimes the insects advertise that they've eaten these toxins.
Yes. Some herbivorous insects that sequester these toxic plant chemicals become brightly colored themselves, aposematic coloration. It's a warning signal to their own predators, like birds, saying, "Don't eat me, I taste awful because I'm full of plant toxins."
It gets really complex. What other chemical tricks do plants have?
Oh, many. Plants also develop things like proteinase inhibitors, which interfere with the digestive enzymes in an insect's gut. or they might produce molecules that mimic insect hormones. Figure 2031 shows some examples which can disrupt the insect's growth, development, or reproduction. It's a constant, intricate chemical arms race.
So the big takeaway is that this biochemistry isn't just incidental.
Not at all. The overarching point is that these biochemical relationships, this coevolution, have driven large, definitive evolutionary steps. They characterize entire plant families and their associated insect faunas. This incredibly diverse arsenal of secondary plant products has played a key, often unseen role in the immense evolutionary success and the staggering diversification of the angiosperms. It allowed them to exploit new niches, defend themselves effectively, and ultimately shape terrestrial ecosystems worldwide.
What an absolutely incredible journey through the evolution of angiosperms. We went from Darwin scratching his head over the abominable mystery right through to this intricate dance of coevolution involving flowers, fruits, animals, chemistry. It really shows how these plants became the dominant life forms they are today.
It really does. And it raises an important question, I think, for you, our listener. The next time you encounter a seemingly simple flower on the roadside or pick up a common fruit at the market, can you now perhaps spot the echoes of its immensely long evolutionary history? Could you decipher its hidden messages for pollinators? Appreciate the clever strategy behind its seed dispersal, or even sense the history of its biochemical defenses against a hungry world? The ingenuity of nature in building these complex, interdependent systems is truly astonishing. It's a silent drama playing out everywhere you look, if you know how to see it.
Fantastic point. We really hope this deep dive has given you a fresh perspective on the vibrant, complex, and sometimes quite sneaky world of plants all around you. From the Last Minute Lecture team, thank you so much for listening.